session is now being recorded. I just want to make sure the new people from Winnipeg, welcome. You see some people from some other places. You'll see a lot more as we go through. But I just want to make sure the tasks of the week. I told you I was gonna go through those with you again. For those of you who've seen it, this is just review. Day one, our first task: create a separate email. This is, we did this. We set it up via Gmail. We want to create a separation from our personal email, and obviously we want to respond typically in 24 to 48 hours. Okay. You don't have to use a business name, like we said. I know you guys all sent me a name, so we're good with this one. Everyone's got this working, correct? Can I get a yes if you're good with this one? We've done this already, right? Everybody's done this? Good. Not all. Okay. Okay. We'll sort that out. Okay. Okay, so day two, create a separate telephone number. There's a free phone line number there if you're looking for a link. But also you can use, I said Comwave is something that I use. It's about $8 a month, separate telephone number. Same thing, we're just trying to create some separation from our regular stuff, from our personal stuff. The tasks of the week document up here, highlighted, you can download it. It'll be this form here, you'll be able to see it. Okay, the third thing was create business cards. I don't know if you got a chance to do the business cards. Try to keep it simple. If you'd like to get more complex or put more on it, you can do that. That's not a problem. It's something that can definitely help you start to build contacts and networks. But I would say this, I think that less is more. In this case, just by putting your email and your name, I think is sufficient, and you can control the contact and the communications with people. So that makes it easier for you. And if you want your phone number on there, you can just write it on, and you can also identify what the relationship is, whether it's rent to own or investor. It could be hard money lender, whatever it is. You could write that on the card. Okay, day four, or the fourth activity, is create a business space at home. This is pretty important. You definitely want to create a business space. A couple of rules that I like to kind of live by and hope that can work out for you is to create an environment for the business where you do nothing else but business in it. I think it's important to create that space so you can make sure that you don't get interrupted with other activities like watching movies or Facebooking or whatever it is. Just keep it simple and in a space specifically for your business, and this is also for tax reasons, and any office supplies you supply with that, you definitely want to keep all receipts. I would definitely keep all receipts of everything moving forward. Let your accountant sort that out, okay? Get mileage book for your vehicle. You can do this through an app. Android has apps that work. This is important for tax reasons. Obviously, we want to track that. Okay, that's the tasks that I gave. I already shared these with you on Sunday. Does anybody have any questions about those tasks? Nope. We good? None. Good. Good. Nothing. Good. Good. Excellent. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I sent you that Excel sheet. I'm going to go through that with you. I'll share my screen. You'll be able to see what I see. I'll actually bring up a deal. It's a deal that a student sent me that I was going to share anyways. I'll review this a second time with this group, with the next group that comes in. But what I will do is share the screen. You'll see a block on the screen. I'm going to bring I'm going to hide the files. Does anybody need the files anymore? We're good. I'm going to hide it. Okay, if you need it later, you can let me know. Let me share my screen. Okay. Did everybody get a call from Baz? That was supposed to from Winnipeg? Did you hear from Baz? Today or tomorrow you'll be hearing from Baz? No call from Baz? Only from Jerry? Good. So did everybody hear from Jerry? Okay, Jerry, yes, good. Kyle, got it, good. Good. Only one. Jerry portal is working yet. It's not working out. Okay, he'll get that working for you. Excellent. Okay, good, good. All right, give me 1 second here, Jerry. Yeah. Okay. All right. So both, or if you've received one call already by one of them, you'll get another call from one of them tomorrow. Okay. So let's share. 1 second. Sorry about that. If everybody can see that and it's big enough, please type in yes. Okay, trying to zoom in myself. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, everybody can see that, yes? The dark square that you see in the top right-hand corner, that's me, being able to see what you're writing, okay? I can't really get rid of that. Second. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is go through this and explain this. This is an actual deal from somebody. This is actually, I change that. 1 second. We'll check that. Yeah, that was it. Okay, so it was 125 was the deal. Rent the units is 2. 1 second, go back to that. Get everybody from Winnipeg, please, and anyone who also wants to follow that's on the call right now. Can you bring up your own sheet right now on your screen? I want you to be able to follow me, okay? I'm going to give you a second to do that. Let me know when you've done it, okay? Everybody can still hear me, right? Everybody have their sheet up? Okay. Trying to, okay. We're good? All right, good. Okay. So this is what we're doing. We're looking at, so we rental units we would put in. We put the total rental income, we input that, and that would give us the average per unit, okay? That's where these came from. So we inputted the 2, we inputted the gross income for the year, and that gave us the $950 per unit was calculated for us, okay? If there's laundry income, vending machines, parking, other, just put the amounts in here, and it'll automatically calculate it there. So 100, that would give us 250 per unit. That's giving us the per unit count, what we're receiving per unit. In this case, it was 0. Okay, so that gave us the 22.8. We have taxes. The taxes are $2,003. That's $166.92 per month. We have insurance, $23.41. This is $195 a month. All these metrics would come from the seller and or the realtor. We'd want to verify all these things, and when we were ready to put, is my voice breaking up? Can you hear me okay? Is my voice coming through okay? Better? Okay. Just move the mic a little bit closer. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So insurance, $2,341. That's $195.08 a month. Okay. So you can see that the of the revenue, it's telling you how much of the revenue is being taken by that particular expense. Okay. Come down here, the heating is $18.19 a year, $151. The water, $26.44. That's $220 a month. The tenants pay any all other utilities. Vacancy was not listed, so it automatically calculates it. at 5%. That gives us the amount of $1440. That's just taking the gross number, 5% of the gross income, and counting it as vacancy. We talked about that in the class. Maintenance, same thing, 5%. If it's not listed, it's going to list it for us. And management, 10% not listed, which it's not. Here you can see the management's not listed. It's going to be calculated. The thing I want to share with you is if I put in 1,000 here, it'll adjust, and you know, because this is 4.4%, it's going to give us the other 5.6% to top it up to 10%. So it'll add that expense. If it's not, if it's partial, it'll still top it up, okay? Because these are kind of the rates that we want in there for now, okay? Now that can change. You can have a higher than maintenance of 5% if it's an older building. That's very possible. You want to make sure that you know, whatever the metric is, whatever the number is, put there. We want to make sure we cover all and any expenses to make sure that our numbers are accurate, okay? So the net operating expense, this is after we put the expenses in, we got $13,367. You see that right there. And then we got net operating income. So after we've taken the expenses away from this here, the $22,008, that's what's giving us the $9,433. Now you can see the ratio breakdown there. 58% is going to expenses, 41% is going to income. So as a rule, you can let yourself know when you come across a property and they give you a gross number, you can divide that by 2 to get a good idea of a net income, a net operating income that you'll get. So if someone said to you, you know, this property makes $50,000 a year in gross income, just cut it in half just to get a quick idea of what you'd be roughly making in net operating income. So if it was $50,000 a year, I would immediately go, okay, that's really $25,000 in net operating income before financing, before anything that I should expect around. Obviously, we'd want to vet all that information, but for quick calculations, it's nice to have a quick rule of thumb, okay? Now, if it starts getting much higher, if this was at 65 or 70%, that would be a problem, and we'll see that show up. We'll see that show up in these metrics. Now, this here, financing, can be modified and changed. Because this property is a 2-unit, it would be considered residential. So 4 units and less are considered residential for mortgages, and 5 and over typically are considered commercial. So the reason that this here is green and it goes 80-20 is because you can most likely get a residential mortgage for this property. Now, if this was a 5, right, this would go red. The reason it go red is because typically on commercial, we're only going to get 65% of our first mortgage. Second mortgage, 20 is fine, and then this is assuming a 15% would be the down payment that we'd be putting in, okay? But because we're back to here, go back to this, hold on a sec. We go back to here, we're going to go back to 2, which was the original. We're going to see that this will be red now because I'll go back to 80, and that's going to give me the 80-20 because it's residential. Okay, does everybody understand that? Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that? So first mortgage typically is going to be held by an institution or a primary lender is what it really means. Our second mortgage could be a private lender or an investor could bring that money in. Okay, are we good? Does anybody have any questions? If you're good, type in yes or why. Well, we always want to estimate. It doesn't always have to be 2 lenders, Kyle. We always look at what if it was 100% financed. So it doesn't have to be 100% financed. We're financing 100%. We're just assuming. And I think I told you that actually, that when it comes to looking at a property, I like to evaluate with 100% financing and see if it actually can make money. Then I know I have a great deal. So we can look here that the rates too are 3 and 6. That could be anything. That could be 5 and 7. Obviously, that's going to affect our numbers. But let's go back to 3, which is like a standard, and 6 for a second mortgage is that might be higher. That might be 7. Depends on really the lender and who it is. Okay. Okay, so we come down here and we see that would be our monthly payment. That'd be the total for the year and the percentage it takes of our gross income. Okay, so if we look here, we see that our profit and loss is 1652.81. That's 7.2% remaining. This right here is important. Okay, very important. Okay, so coverage ratio, what it's saying to us is if it's 1.21%, which is basically the same thing as saying 120%, our net income covers completely our debt service, which in this case was $7,780, and the coverage ratio is 120%. In other words, we have enough income to cover all our debt service, plus we have 21% left over. Does everybody understand that? We have 121% of the debt service that we would need to spend at this current finance rate here. Does that make sense to everybody? You good? This number is important. I'll tell you why. It's important because banks like to see this coverage ratio at 1.2 or higher. 1.2 or higher is what they like to see. Okay? Just change something. Let's see. That's where it was. Okay. That's what you sent me. Okay. So 1.24 coverage ratio. You see the coverage ratio here is good. We like that. Now the cash on cash return is infinite. Does everybody understand what that is? Infinite meaning we have no money in the deal. Okay, there's zero money in the deal, and you can see because we financed the whole amount, there's no money in the deal. Then we have average profit per unit is $76. I think everybody remembers we talked about the $75 is good. That's a bare minimum, and obviously that's after we paid all our expenses. We're still making $75. GRM is gross rent multiplier. It's not a really important one to talk about here and now, but really it's just a quick calculator of what our gross rents give us per year, which is this amount, divided by this amount gives us that amount. Okay? So basically it's saying our gross rents go in 5.48 times. This gross rent, so we take this divided by this, and that gives us that. Okay? Please explain coverage ratio again. No problem. Okay. So coverage ratio, and the reason it's important is banks look at that. Banks want to know, after you paid all your bills, right? After we paid all our bills, these are all our bills, right? And you cover your financing, how much money do you have left over? And this tells us here that after our net operating income, actually, let me break it down. Let me back up a bit. So net operating income is $9,433, okay? The bank wants to know, can we afford this financing? Should have put it that way to make it clear. The bank wants to know, can we afford the financing they're giving us, right? Based on after we pay all our bills, how much do we have left over? And you can see that we're bringing in, after we pay all our bills, $9,433. Then when we throw in financing, it's $7,598. That's what's going to cost us to finance this project. The bank wants to know, do we have more coming in after we pay our bills? Do we have enough left to cover the total expense of the financing? So you see here, the net operating income is $9,433. Debt service, which is basically the mortgage, the cost of carrying the mortgage. What's that payment to us each month? And we see at the end of the month, my apologies, at the end of the year, it's $7,598. Our net operating income at the end of the year is $9,433. Which tells them that yes, we have enough money to cover the cost of debt service, the cost of financing this project. Does that make sense? They just want to make sure that we have enough money coming in. Because if the financing, let's go this way, either or can create a problem for you. If you don't have enough net operating income, let's say other costs, let me put $5,000 there, okay? So what happens is, when I put that $5,000 as an expense, because these are expenses, you can see that the total net operating income now is 80% of it's being eaten by the expenses. That only leaves us 19.4. If we go to coverage ratio, here's the problem, right? Now the bank's looking at us and saying, wow, they can't cover even 100% of the cost of the debt service. They can't cover the debt service. They're actually only able to cover half of it. And that's that net operating income, $4,433. The debt service is $7,500. How are they going to be able to maintain this property? How are they going to be able to do it? That's where the bank might look at you and see if you can cover the cost personally, and you definitely don't want to be part of the decision making We don't want our own income coming into the property to finance it, okay? So let's go back to the original number. Okay, so here we had cash on cash return. Does everybody understand why it's infinite? Everybody know why it's infinite? Rose, you just joined us, yes? Is that you, Rose? You just joined? Yeah, no money spent, Kyle, you're right. Thought I just saw Rose. Yes. Okay, this is your deal, is it not, Rose? This is yours, right? Yes, good. We were just going over it. I'm going over it with everybody, and from our new group from Winnipeg. So I was just going over it with them and explaining the numbers. It was. You didn't miss anything, John. This is I have a new group for Winnipeg joining us, and I opened up the room earlier for them as I did for you. Remember, I opened up a half an hour earlier for new people to give them a chance to get acquainted with stuff. So some of this stuff you're going to see, you were seeing was review. Okay, so you didn't miss anything. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. Hi, Winnipeg. There you go. That's good. Everybody say hi. There you go. Good stuff. Hello. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. So let's go back to this sheet. So Rose, for you, just I was looking over it. This was the number, right? 125, right? 125,000 for the property. That was the price. Okay. 225. I think it's worth less. It is worth less, but that's okay. I looked it over just quickly, Rose, for you. It doesn't look bad. It looks like we can do something with this. I really think that this might be a good opportunity for you. So I'm excited for you. We can continue to have that conversation offline, me and you. But for now, let's go over it with the group and we can talk about it. But I think this is something that we can work with, definitely. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so let's go down. We went through the expenses with everybody. Okay, so the expenses are there. They're identified. So just want to double check, Rose, there's no other expenses than what we have here, right? Everything else is paid by the tenants, correct? Okay, excellent. All right. Okay, so we're going to continue. We were explaining the metrics of the property. Go down here. Okay, so we were explaining the coverage ratio, which is making sure that we have enough money coming in, net operating income to cover the debt service, the cost of covering the debt of this property. And this again is a 100% financing. If there was no second mortgage, obviously the coverage ratio would be higher. So let's say, for the sake of 1%, you see the coverage ratio went up because I was only financing 1% of it, 19% was down. Let's just do this for simplicity. Okay, 139, you can see it jumped to 140. This is me just putting in net numbers in there, but basically saying that 80% of the mortgage is covered in this property, right? Let's do that. Okay, so if 80% of the mortgage was covered, you see the coverage ratio is 1.63. If we put 20% down on this property, it would clearly give us more money after we did the coverage ratio. You can see these metrics will start to move too. Okay, so let me go back here to where she had it. Okay, so the average profit per unit is $76, so that's excellent. As long as we have $75 a minimum, that's going to work for us. The GRM we talked about, so the GRM is something that really is a quick calculator when you don't have all this information here, the good stuff, the gross income and the expenses. But really it's just saying how many times does this go into this? How many times does the gross income go into the price? 5.8 times. Anything less than 6 is better. So When you have a higher number here, going into the lower number here, this was lower, this would be better, the GRM would be better. If the gross income was higher, the GRM would be better, okay? But a 6 GRM, gross rent multiplier, is fine. We don't have to worry about that, okay? It's not a metric that I want you to worry too much about. The other metrics are more important, okay? Okay, so, second. All right, let's go here. We see, okay, so cap rate, pretty important. It's 7.5 as a cap rate. That's pretty important. Now, we like to see a 10 or higher for this, for cap rate. 7.5 is not terrible, though. 7.5, still we can work with the 7.5, so that's not terrible. And basically, that's telling us this property here, this property, if we paid it off, $125,000, if we paid it off in cash, it was completely paid off, we would make 7.5% on it, okay? 7.5% on this property. And the way it calculates that's real simple. It's not that complicated. It just assumes you paid for the property. It divides your net operating income, okay, net operating income into this, and that's how it gets that number, okay? Okay. And for those of you that are new to this, and some people from Montreal have reached out to me, I don't want you to stress or worry about, if this is not making sense to you, or you feel like still uncomfortable with the sheet. I still want you to work with it and keep working with it, and give yourself a chance to understand it and have fun with it. Throw in fake numbers if you want to see where it takes you. Okay, is the profit loss shown monthly or yearly? So here you go. So your net operating income is 13,000. Sorry, your total operating expense is 13,367. Your net operating income is 9,433. So net operating income does not include financing. Okay, this does not include financing. Okay, when you're looking at what do I make at the end of the month, which you can calculate at the end of the year. This goes end of the month. So at the end of the month, we're making 75 per unit. We have 2 units, we're making 75. The rule for us is 75 per door. Okay. Now the profit for the month or the year really it's more important to break it down to actually per door and use these metrics to protect you against the whole number, because the whole number itself doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It really, this is your yearly, what you're making a year, 9,433. This is what it's costing you per year, 7,598 for your financing, and that's where they get the coverage ratio. Okay, but these are the metrics I really want you to pay attention to protect you, to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Okay. Okay. Matthew couldn't come? Is that what you meant? Right. Okay, I got you. All right. Okay. All right. So let's go to cap rate. Let's go to cap rate. So cap rate is 7.5. Good. 7.5. Everybody understand what the cap rate is now? Everybody know what that is? That's basically 7.5% return if we had paid the whole property off. Yeah, exactly. But it's ROI on the whole amount. Very important. That's not cash on cash return. That's why they don't call it ROI or return on investment, because the assumption with real estate is in most cases you're not paying it off completely in the purchase. Okay, but if you paid it off completely in the purchase, the 125, you'd be making a 7.5% return. We'd like to see a 10, 7.5 we can work with. We got a lot of green here, 1 red. This is a property that we possibly could do something with. Me and Rose will work on this and see what we can do with this. Okay, now when we come into the blue area, you'll see that it actually tells you based on those numbers what the property is worth to us. So to us, this property is worth $94,330. This is there to protect you, to make sure that you're not overpaying on property. And in some cases, most cases, this would be your maximum offer price would be $94,330. That'd be the maximum offer price. Okay. So when we come down here, I'll change this to 80 again, and 20. Okay, for that. So it matches this financing here. Okay. So We go down here a little bit further, and we see the metrics here all work out. We see a current cap rate now at 10. The number goes up if we purchase the property at 94,000. The per unit goes up to 135. Give me 1 second. For the new ones, a reminder that your net operating income over the property value, in other words, how much you earn. Thanks. Thank you very much. This is what we need to do. We need to teach each other. So that's good. I'm glad you're getting it. Okay. So when we go over here, to the number again, 94,000 is what we're looking at. 94,330. If we go over here, we're going to see that the results are different because the price is different. This changes everything, right? But we see that again, infinite cash on cash return because there's no money in the property. We see that the average profit per unit is $135 versus the original $75, which was $76.44, which was acceptable, right? But obviously 135 is better. The GRM is 4.14, and I shared with you that we want that to be the lower the better. Under 6 though, again, this was sufficient. This was fine. This is just better. Cap rate, here's the big change right here. It's 10, cap rate's 10. We see that the current cap rate is 7.5 here, 10 here, showing us in green. We like to see it greater than 10. The cost per unit, I don't want you to worry about. That's if you're doing multiple condos, multiple units. It doesn't have to be condos, but multiple units. It would make more sense. It's not really a number that you have to worry about, okay? So don't worry about the cost per unit. That's really breaking up the price of the units that you're buying. So in this case, it's 2 divided by this divided by 2. My apologies. We'll give you that. The coverage ratio, you see, bumps up now to 1.53 versus the 1.24. So the higher the coverage ratio, the better, right? Okay. So when we have all these metrics, now we see, okay, this is the maximum offer price. We're going to come down here, so it shows us list price is $125, value of the property is $94,000. Now it's always going to assume that's our maximum offer price, right? So when we come over here, and we can change this to even 85, 95 is fine. First offer, it says, let's make it my first offer of 80,000, 180, 50. That's 85% of the list price. Sorry, 85% of our price. 64% of list price. Okay, and that's 64 is pretty low. Okay, but this is a cash offer with VTB, 89,613.50. This is 95% of this price. It is 72% of the original price up here. Okay, so it's not a huge discount, but it's 28%. It's still it's getting close to a third, right? But this is the beginning of it. We want to actually make an offer and hopefully get a response. Here, just give me 1 second. No problem. Okay. Do people actually let their property go for 60 cents on the dollar? So Kyle, this is based on, what do we want to hear for our first offer? Everybody knows this. I share this with everybody, but if you don't know it, you will in a second. What do we want to hear on our first offer? Yeah, we want to hear no, Kyle. We actually want to hear no. Okay, so we want to hear no, because if we hear a yes, then we're going to actually possibly leave money on the table. Okay, and this is a guide for us, right? This is a guide to help us understand what we should do next and how we should do it. So with Rose, I'll talk a little bit about that after we're done. But let me just finish the sheet here. When we look at this, it tells us that with VTB, $89,613. We see VTB interest only and VTB interest in principal, VTB interest only. So all it's doing is taking this VTB, a portion of this VTB, and putting it down here, okay? And this is 5-year term, 30 years. In this case, it's interest only, so it doesn't matter what the term is. And what it's going to do is it's going to offer, we're going to say to them, 1 second, we're going to say to them, hey, by the way, we will charge 5%. We will give you a 5% interest rate on a VTB interest in principal on this loan of $18,000, and VTB interest only will give you 6%. Now, okay, Lazar, what do you mean? What portion? The portion of the amount. See this here? See this here? This amount right here? The 20%. So Lazar, it's always going to go minimum 20%, right? Or whatever down payment amount you put in there, okay? And why would we do that? Why would we make it the down payment? Try some here so you can see it. 30, and we put 5% down, and you'll see that this now, see this, Lazar? The second mortgage is 30%. It always assumes the second mortgage is the VTB amount we want. Now we can ask for 100% VTB, but this isn't the case, and this is why we do some fact finding to see if there's a mortgage on the property in the first place. But as a minimum, it's always going to assume, the sheet's always going to assume that it's the second mortgage that you're going to ask from the seller. So it's going to take this number here, the second mortgage number, and that's what it's going to do. And you can see that I put 30%. Now this is 30%, right? If I bring this back to 20, it's going to go now, and I bring this back. Well, it doesn't really matter. If I bring it back to 20, it's going to be only 20%, and we originally had this at 80%, and that's why we have a total down 0. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, just going to continue. So when we look at this line here, I want everyone to notice, right? VTB, IMP, interest and principal. That's going to be, we're going to offer 5% on it. Okay, 5%. We're going to pay them 5% a year, and that's the monthly, that's the yearly, that's the balloon payment. Now, balloon payment means after 5 years, we're going to pay the whole amount, okay, the absolute whole amount. And then we have VTB, interest only, and it's the same amount, nothing's changed, but you can see that when we come over to here, we're offering a higher interest rate because it's interest only. And why would we do that? Well, we do that because the monthly drops from 100 to 94, right? 100 to 94, which is going to increase our cash flow. The yearly is a little bit less, but you can look here. We're going to end up paying a little bit more. We're going to pay a little bit more for the balloon payment, right? Because we've only been paying interest during it. Okay, so give me 1 second. Okay, so this is the property. Rose, are you asking me to put the address up for your property? Thought I got a text from you. Are you there? No, I didn't think so. Okay. Okay. So clearly when we put these videos out, this is Rose's deal. Everybody knows it's Rose's deal. Nobody on this call should be attempting to put an offer on it. That's exclusive to Rose. Okay, everybody understands that, right? Okay. So I don't want that to be an issue or challenge. Most of the time I take out the address. I didn't in this one. It was at the top, but it really doesn't matter what it is. Everybody understands this is Rose's deal, okay? All right, so we don't need competing offers from the group, okay? All right, so any questions about the property? Any questions about the property? Sure, Lazar, we'll look at that. Okay, anybody have any questions? No? Group from Winnipeg, are you good? Did you get an idea of this? So Winnipeg, why don't you go through 5 properties this week and see what you can come up with for numbers. If you think you come across something that's something, you could definitely send it to me. Okay? So this one, Rose Rose, let's set up a call tomorrow. Okay, Rose? What time's good for you tomorrow? You can text me, Rose, if you want. We'll talk tomorrow. I want to talk tomorrow. You know what? Actually, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's not good. Let's do. You know what? If you can call me late tomorrow, Rose, I can give you a call. So why don't you text me time late tomorrow? I'm just gonna be busy during the day, and we'll have a chat with it. Okay? You text me when you're available, and we're in the same time zone, Rose, so we can talk. I think let me see. You know what? Let's do any time after 7, Rose. Just text me 7 p.m. and I'll get back to you. Okay? Just let me know that you're available. Okay. Yeah, we'll go over another one. We'll go over another one. We'll look at, Lazar sent me some stuff here. We'll look at what he's got. Okay. All right, any other questions about this deal? What if the bank wants 30? So the bank typically wouldn't want 30 for residential property because this is a 2-unit building. So typically they wouldn't want 30%. Okay? Typically on a residential property it's going to be 20%. 20% down will get you, you know, the bank would really want not more than that. Okay? That's what they asked me. So if they asked you for 30% for an investment property, is that right? They asked you for an investment property, they asked you 30%? Yeah. Do you have status in Canada? Yeah. Status. Yeah. No. Stacy, if you have rentals, it's going to be 20% down. If it's a rent investment property, if it's for yourself, Stacy, you could do 5%. You could do 5%. So yeah, with foreign investment, you're going to be looking at 30 or even 35% for a down payment. But we're fortunate today. We have my mortgage broker and financial advisor with us tonight. Again, Tarek, and he can talk about different programs where people who are new immigrants to the country, that there's opportunities that might be able to work for you. Okay, but it's something that that can be worked. Triplex Bank is asking for 10. That's awesome. That's great, Stacy. That's great. For similar investment, how much cap rate is acceptable? So for any investment, it's pretty much the same. We'd always want to stay around 10%. So 10% is what we want for 10 cap rate is what we want, which is the same thing as 10%, but 10 cap rate. So a 10 cap rate is the bracket for every property as a starting point. You can see that we're looking at a cap rate of less than 10 on this property, but we will definitely work together and with Rose and see if we can actually get this property up a little bit better. It doesn't have to get all the way up to 10. This could be, 115. I would be happy actually with this property. Let's go here, and I would be happy with 115, which isn't quite 10, but an 8.2%. I like this number here. That's what I like. Like this, that 100 is very nice. It's very nice. What if we have a lower cap rate but a high ROI? You mean cash on cash return? Is that what you mean? So cash on cash return, you have to be careful because we can create an infinite cash on cash return, which just means we don't have any money, but the cap rate could be low. We want this to be at least $75 per unit. Okay, so cash on cash return is just and you can see the cash on cash return in this case is 30%. We'd like to see, which just means every dollar we put in, we make 30 cents. As a rule, that's what we would want to make. Does that answer your question? So I don't want you just to look at return on investment for the cash that you put in. Okay? Sorry, did you say it to answer your question, Mehdi? Kyle, what's the average time it takes to understand the property's actual expense? What do you mean by that, the actual time? Do you mean to get the information, Kyle? Is that what you mean? So embedding a deal, embedding a deal, that's a tough one, right? Because some people are going to provide that information relatively easy, but I think I share this with everyone that properties, distressed sellers, distressed sellers and distressed properties, typically mismanaged. You're not going to get that information that's complete. You might get it quick, but it's not complete. But it shouldn't take you a lot of time to get that information. You got to remember, Kyle, they want to sell the property, right? So they're going to provide that information as quickly as possible. Just probably not complete. That's the problem. So it shouldn't take you that long to get that information. Just request it, right? You can just email the realtor and or the seller and say, I'm interested in your property. Could you send me the all expenses and income statement for the property, just so I can look at it. Okay, Mehdi, I just want to go back to you, my friend. Mehdi, did I not answer your question, my friend? I want to make sure that. Remember, everybody, asking a question here is the best possible place you could ask, because everyone gets the answer to it, right? We talk about the question, everybody gets the answer. So please, this is the forum for this. This is why I love this forum. Everybody learns from the experience. Everybody learns when we're putting up deals. So please fire away. So as a rule, I like to see these numbers. Most of these things look in green, right? If you have a cap rate of, a 4 or a 3, probably not going to be a property that's deal. But in the beginning, if you want to send me something because you think you can err on the side of caution and send me, if you think you have something, send it to me. I'll look it over. It doesn't take me much time to look it over and see if there's an actual opportunity there. Okay? So if you're not sure, you can send it to me. I like to see the cap rate. This was a nice one. The cap rate was a 7. Which is a little bit lower than the 10, but what I really liked about it was, and this is why, look, the expenses on this are here, and the cap rate was 7. But the big thing, couple things that I really liked about this deal is that the tenants were paying the other expenses. Okay, and when we put all of these numbers in, it was still running at a 7. A 7 we can possibly get to an 8, or even a 9 based through negotiations. Okay. Any other questions? We good? If you're good, type in yes or Y. There you go. There must be a delay. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to shut this deal down. I'm going to go back to the main screen. Can you back to the offer section? Sure, George, we can do that. How do we find a deal like that? Vivian, it's definitely looking good, yeah. You know what? The other thing I'll say is this. Coverage ratio 7.2 means that we do not have enough coverage. Yes, Steve, that's right. So a coverage ratio of 0.72 means that you don't have enough money to cover your cost of financing. You can't cover it, right? You only have 72% of the money you need to cover the expense of carrying the property. Okay. Now that's going to change based on how much you put down and what the financing numbers are. But we definitely don't want to end up with a 0.72. That's going to be a problem for any institution or lender, right? We want to definitely be knowing, and even for us, we should be looking at anything that's not, a 1.2, in that range. Okay. The other thing is, if anybody's, Rose, are you open to a partnership on this deal? I'll just share it with everybody. Are you open to a partnership on this deal, Rose? We'll let her type in her answer, but always a good question. Half of something's better than 100% of nothing. So if it's something that, Rose, you're open to, or anybody's open to any of their deals, share it with the group, let them know. And possibly this could be a deal for 2 people or more. Can I think about it and get back to you? Sure, Rose. Yeah. We'll talk tomorrow, okay? Yeah, anybody who's working on anything, looking for capital or a partner or something like that, when we look at these deals, we can announce that, and the person can let us know. Rose, we'll follow up with you next week on that, Rose, and we'll let the group know if you're open to that, okay? All right, so I think I'm going to close this up, all right? And we will come back to this Lazaro, I'm going to come back to that, I promise. I'm going to do that, my friend. Yeah. Well, I promise I'll come back to that. Okay, Lazar. I want to bring my my friend on, a good friend, and he's like family to me. He's my financial advisor and lender, and he's one of the best. Definitely, he'll be able to share some of his knowledge, and you can ask him questions about financing. Okay. Just everybody, just obviously it's a process, right? And we're taking the next 12 months. Whenever you started, we're looking at trying to get 1 or 2 properties in the next 12 months, depending on your start date. That's all we're trying to do. You need to do this right. This first deal needs to be, those first couple deals need to be right more than anything. We don't want to make a mistake. So what I want you to do is go through the process of going through the classes, listening to your mentor, and showing up on these Tuesday calls is pretty important. Obviously, if your class runs on the same night as this call, please go to your class. This will always be here. These recordings are posted on YouTube. Please subscribe. I will post a link before we leave about just for the new ones, so they can get on it. But just review the videos, and we just keep going and going. And we will put a lot of offers out. We will look at a lot of properties. Well, not physically look at them. We will run a lot of numbers on a lot of properties. But this is the good news is this: the likelihood of you making a real big mistake or putting yourself in a bad position, that's really gone if you do the right things. If you follow the coaching and the mentoring and the classes and what you learn, and this call, being there on Tuesday, letting us help you. Make sure that you don't make that mistake is everything. So it's sure the deals might not come as fast as we want, but the good news is we're not going to make mistakes, and that's the safety and insurance that you get being part of this team and this program. Okay, all right. So is that good? So basically, I want you to go through the sheet, newbies. Go through the sheet, run a few properties. You see something, send it to me. And get into momentum as quickly as possible in your classes. And on demand opens up as soon as you register for the class. You can start watching that too. Okay. Can you run as much properties as up to 100 and only find like 5 good ones is normal? That's about right. Yep. 5 potential. Those are 5 potential. I don't know how many of those will become properties. Could be 1. Could be 1. Right. But this is why running the numbers matters, right? So you don't waste time. We're not going to look at 100 properties. That's not going to happen. Running 100 properties through the sheet, is we're talking what 3 to 5 minutes when you have the numbers in front of you. That's going to be the time saver. That's not going to take a ton of time to run those numbers, and we want to be efficient. Even if you did, if you did 5 a week, that's 20 a month. Take you 100 would be, if you did that slow, it'd take you 5 months. And that's running only 5 a month. That's 1 a day. If you ran, 5 a day, obviously that would be 25. That would be 100 in a month. Okay, so it's really your pace. You decide. Put healthy pressure on yourself. Don't put too much pressure. That's going to make you feel like you can't do it. Put the good kind of pressure on, and that's what's going to get you there. Okay, is creative financing better for me and my dad compared to rent and hold? We'd have to look at that deal by deal. Okay. Let's look at that deal by deal. Okay, we always love creative financing. It's all creative financing to us. We'd have to look at deal by deal to see what we can do. Not a lot available on the listings. So yeah, so everybody knows listings. MLS is not where you're going to find great deals. That's retail, right? So we have to put out the seeds and see what takes crop and see what comes up, and it's gonna. There's no question it's gonna take time. You're not gonna find it on the retail market. Again, you have to recognize that it's really about the property paying you, right? What we do is special. It's a specialized skill, and what we don't do is get into properties that are not good for us. Okay. Not a lot of data on the listings. It's more than 3 minutes. So not on the listing, you're not going to get all that information. What I was meaning was when you have the information, you can put the information in. It won't take you more than 3 minutes to evaluate a property with the numbers, John. So an email. Definitely, we're going to have to get the information. It's going to take effort. This is not something that's so easy that everybody can do it. This is why we do what we do. Okay, so let me know if you come up with something. Obviously, I will look it up. Yes, they will be paying many of those expenses. Hopefully, enough to pay us, and then get our money, some money out of those are. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to bring my good friend on, Tarek, who's going to talk to us about financing. Okay. All right, hold on. Al, what's up? Join had a decent question. What was that, Kyle? What was the question? Sorry, Jonathan had a question. See about. Okay, here it is. On a rental basis based property, if the second lender has terms of return on investment and the profit is 1 or 2 years, if the net profit doesn't equal the amount, do you refinance through the bank? So let me read that again, okay, Jonathan? On a rental-based property, if the second lender has terms of return on investment and profit in 1 to 2 years, if the profit doesn't equal the amount, you refinance through the bank. I think I understand what you're saying. Okay, so Jonathan, you're saying if somebody invests with you or a lender gives you money and the property value when you refinance it doesn't cover, is that what you mean, Jonathan? Okay, so again, this is an excellent question. So Jonathan, this is why it's so, and if you need more information, you tell me about this. Okay, so Jonathan, when the property is taken, and this is why it's so important for everybody to get a discount off a retail property. You don't want to pay retail for property, because if you pay retail for property, where are we going to be in 2 or 5 years? If we make money in the buy, right, let's do a $100,000 property. If I have a $100,000 property and I negotiate because it's slightly distressed, it needs some work, it needs $10,000 for rehab to fix it up, it'll be worth $120,000, but in its current state, it's worth $100,000, Jonathan. We negotiate and say we get it for $85,000. Okay, not a huge discount, 15%, but $85,000. Okay, so if we get it for $85,000, Jonathan, what that gives us a chance to do is we can take a 15% drop in the market for us before we lose any value in that property. You see that, correct? Does everybody see that? We could drop 15% down to $85,000. We're still dollar for dollar on value on the property. Okay. Now, if the property sustains and maintains its current value, or slightly goes up, let's say the property goes up $5,000 or not huge, right? And if we're talking about the national average, which is about 6%, that's say in 2 years it'd be $112,000. When we refinance that, Jonathan, that would cover the full investment of the $85,000. In this example, the full $85,000. In the situation, let's pretend, in the situation that the property stayed at $100,000 or even went down to $90,000, we had $85,000 into the property, and we only had it for a couple years, so there wasn't a lot of principal covered on it. In that case, if we couldn't creatively finance or extend that property, what we do is we'd have to look at, Jonathan, at selling the property. Absolutely selling the property to get out of it. We'd still make money, but we wouldn't necessarily be able to keep it in that case, right? And that would be something that a couple things would happen that would have to happen for us to actually go through that, okay? But we definitely want to, and nobody knows the future, right? We definitely want to make sure that, we put ourselves in the best possible position for the future, right? Nobody can predict the future, but making sure and doing our best to make sure we get a discount creates a huge buffer for us, right? It creates a huge, safety net for if the market goes down. Okay, does that happen? Okay, good. Yeah. We could even use the same lender, Jonathan. We could even use the same lender, right? If you've been paying people the right way, and I'm telling everybody this, once somebody gives you a loan, private money, and you've been on the dot paying them, and it's a good return, many of them are more than happy to extend that. They're more than happy to extend that. Okay, so you have to treat these people right. These people are important to you. At the same time, you're providing something for them too. They're getting something out of this deal too, right? So, you know, we prepare for the worst, absolutely. And to do that, we have to make sure we come into the deal properly, okay? Matthew, you were asking for your text. Yeah, I'll look for your text, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to. Hold on one sec. There we go. So we're back to the regular screen here. Okay. Hold on. All right. Let me just bring up something. Give me 1 second, folks. Let us bring up. Okay. Report. Okay, let's bring that up. Okay, so give me 1 second. I'm going to answer these last few questions and then pass them. Okay. Okay, so Noel's saying, why would we take a second mortgage on a high interest rate when banks, as you say, would allow us to have 5% down? Not applicable to me, though. Okay. The reason, it really comes down to numbers. Okay, so I'm not telling you not to put anything down, but does anybody remember what we like to keep it at as a maximum? Does anybody remember what I said? Do you remember us talking about this? We're okay with some, right? Does anybody remember what I shared with you? You know, a good number to live by, or a good rule to live by, is no more than what percentage? What percent? There it is, 10%. 10K. George, you meant 10%, I'm sure. So Noel, 0 would be great, right? But as a rule, we don't want to go more than 10%. Can anybody tell me why we don't really want to go more than 10%? And this is a rule of thumb, right? If there's a situation where it makes sense for us to put more than 10%, I'm okay with you putting more in, but there has to be an exit plan, right? You have to be able to get the money out. You could put all the money in if you have a way to get it out, right? So if you're going to hold a percentage long term, 10 or less is where we want to be. That's the good thing for us. The reason we don't want to go over that is if there's no money in property. Yeah, there's I definitely believe that. You know that. The reason, and Lazar, you're touching it there by saying that, because when you put 10% into a property, or so my apologies, well, any amount, okay, in property, it's difficult to get out. Okay, when you refinance, the property has to either increase in value or we have to get a discount, right? Now, 10% is not a big deal. We can hold 10%. We can live with 10% because 10%, when you do a cash-on-cash return with the way we do it, you're okay. You're making good money, right? You might be making 20 or 30% on that 10% that you put down, right, in value. That's great. You're okay. When you put in 20%, you're going to have to wait considerably longer, and sometimes twice as long, to be able to get that 20% out of the property. So, you know, it's a great question. We definitely want to consider how much money we're putting into a property. But at the end of the day, it's really about us considering this question. How much money of my money will it take for me to control this property? Is it 5%? Is it 7%? Is it 0%? The lower the better, right? Because the property itself is the only reason we want that property, and we would love to have it fully financed. It needs to cash flow, right? We don't want to worry about the overall value of a property. We want to control it, and I'm talking about buy and hold, of course. We want that property for the sake of the cash flow. That's really what we're looking for. This is slightly different, of course, when we're talking about flipping a property. It's a different scenario, right? The amount of money we put in stuff, this is a short-term, right? We're looking at 30, 60, 90 days, or even 6 months. That money at that point, it's different, right? Because we're putting money in with the intention of getting the money out. In fact, you know, when you're rehabbing a property, when you're buy, fix, and sell, the property typically is not cash flowing for you, right? It's a loser every month. And this is why we do carrying costs. What does it cost me to hold that property? And that's a metric that we definitely want to consider when we're looking at it in our numbers, okay? Okay, any other questions? I'm going to pass it over. I want to make sure we have some time for Tarek, okay? Okay, here. So I'm going to let Tarek introduce himself. Tarek's going to be here. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to mute us for a second, and then Tarek's going to talk to you about financing, okay? He'll talk a little bit about himself. I want you to do that, Tarek, please. Let him know who you are, and then we'll do that, okay?
Okay, so last time.
Okay, can everybody hear me? I know there was no sound. I just had it off for a second. Is that loud enough for everybody? Everybody hear me okay? I'm kind of yelling. I just want to make sure you can hear me, okay? So Tarek's with us. He's going to talk to you. Some of this is going to be review, but it's great information to know about understanding financing, okay? So you can throw your questions out there. I'll answer them as he sees them, and we'll definitely this is going to be recorded, so you're going to be able to review it again. But definitely financing is something we will continue to come back to, and Tarek will continue to join us. We're thankful for that to help us out in that area, okay? Baz is calling Baz is going to talk to those who he hasn't talked to, the new people, just to touch base with you, okay? Snope, just to say hi, make sure everything's okay, and Jerry will also be talking to you, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Tarek. He's going to introduce himself, and we'll see what we can come up with and learn in this last 20 minutes or so.
Thanks, Sam, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tarek Soufan. So for those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm a friend of Sam's, and I've been in financial services since 2005. Over the years, I've had many different roles. In my most recent role, since 2009, I've worked as a financial advisor, half in financing and half in investments. I spend, I'd say, a good 60% of my time doing lending and 40% managing money. I've spoken with you guys in the past about some of the lower level details, the numbers, the ratios, and things like that. Today, we're going to take it into a different direction. We're going to talk from a higher level overview. So we're going to start off with the credit ecosystem, basically. And I've got a tool here that lets me just write some notes. So I'm gonna kind of just draw it out for everyone. And if anybody has any questions, just pause me. Or if I talk too fast, pause me as well. Or if the volume's low, let me know. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start. So the three main areas of focus when it comes to credit. There's the individual who's asking for money, obviously. So we'll just point that out. So there's the borrower. We've got the financial institutions or the lenders. And that looks like banks, credit unions, insurance companies, and private. The third piece of this puzzle, which is also very important, are the mortgage insurers. And there's three in Canada. And my advice to you all is just to visit their websites and understand what it is that they do, what services they provide, and all the different programs that are available to you. Because, I mean, there's 1,000 different programs available from each of the three lenders, from each of the three mortgage insurers. And I'll write them down real quick here for you.
So when you say mortgage insurers, you're talking like CMHC. Most people know CMHC. A lot of people don't know that there's other options on there. So CMHC, Genworth. Give me 1 second, Tarek. Can you write it up?
Yep.
Maybe here. We could do another. Yep. Let me give you another way. Yeah.
So Canada Guarantee.
There you go. So Canada Guarantee.
They're the newbies to this market, and because of that, they're probably the most lenient. They have the lightest lending restrictions, and they got some very unique programs, especially for newcomers and immigrants to Canada. But you need to get to know these three mortgage insurers. They're the only three in Canada. They've got different programs, and when we talk about creative financing, those who understand the finer details of how these companies work will have a great advantage when it comes to lending. At the top, when we talk about the different lending institutions, so you've got your traditional banks. They've got their posted rates. You've got insurance companies, you've got credit unions, and you've got private money. Each one of these categories has their own lending requirements. But the banks, the credit unions, and the insurance companies, they all want insurance on every deal. So regardless if you have to have the insurance, they'll want to pay for it. So for example, what I mean by that is this: anybody who's putting down less than 20% has to have mortgage insurance.
Has to pay for it.
They have to pay for it out of their own pocket. Right. Anybody who's paying more than 20% down, the lender will usually pay for it. The lender wants it. And the reason why the lender wants it is it just makes sense to have the insurance in place in case of the default. And they're thinking more larger scale more than anything else.
Yeah, and because it's there, right? They're creating the loan, and to ensure that the loan is taken care of long term, it's nominal. It costs them pennies on the dollar to actually insure their loan, to ensure that they can continue to give out loans, right? Because if they don't get that insurance, people are going to worry about their ability to actually pay out if there is a default.
And it's factored into their profit. So when they're bundling up these mortgages and then reselling them, this is all factored in. They've already factored in that there's going to be mortgage insurance built in there, or default. We call it default insurance. I don't want to confuse it with mortgage insurance. We're not talking about paying off your mortgage when you die. We're talking about these institutions are going to be paying the banks if you default on your mortgage. So that's what default insurance is.
And in Canada, we have relatively low default rate. Right now, Alberta is probably experiencing the highest rate, Calgary in particular, just because of the drop in oil. So we're seeing a little bit more in that area. But I mean, every city has a slight default rate. There's foreclosures, and we see the listings of them. We talked about foreclosures that we're looking for pre-foreclosures, but that's another discussion, okay?
And if I'm on the call next week, which I'll try to be on, we can kind of dig in a little bit more and look at each one of these areas of the chart here, and kind of just look at the finer details of them. So let me give you an example. So when it comes to the banks, each bank has its own unique set of lending requirements. And what I mean by that is if you're walking in there and you want to get a mortgage, they've got a listing of what income verification looks like. And each institution has their own way of verifying your income, right? So when we talk about income is one of those things that the bank's going to look at on every deal. They're going to look at your capacity to pay off your debts, right? And that's part of so when we look at the individual, now we talk about 5 C's of credit. Capacity is one of those 5 C's. So the bank's looking at that. The bank's looking at, what is your income? And then they want to know, how are they going to verify that income? What is the method that they use? So each lending institution has their own way. Some are going to ask you for T4, some are going to ask you for most assessments, some may ask just for an employment letter, last 2 pay stubs, and maybe a bank statement showing the deposit. Right? And that's going to help you. We're talking default foreclosure?
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. But if we can focus on the individual, so in that previous chart or diagram where I showed you the 3 different areas, if we just focus on the borrower, there's 5 C's. We call it the 5 C's of credit, and what that means is any lender is going to look at these five criterias. These 5 criterias, real quick, are, and I'll explain each one of them to you here in a second. So we have character, credit, capacity, collateral, and capital. So if we dig a little further, character means the person himself or herself. So how long has the person been employed? What is their history like? For example, a 21-year-old with 1 credit card who's paid it off, every month, paid off his balance for a year, will have very high credit. That doesn't mean he can go out and get a mortgage. Just because you have a high credit score doesn't mean you qualify for a mortgage.
On its own.
On its own, exactly. So character means, are you mature? You have a history of paying your bills on time? Are you jumping from job to job?
And Tarek, that would also include the relationship you have with the bank, right? That area, right?
Correct. So the more products you have with the bank, the more tenor you have with them, the higher you're going to, the higher internal score you're going to get with them.
And that doesn't not just have to be a bank. I mean, that's a credit union. Credit unions are great, actually, for that area of character, that C, because it's much easier to develop a relationship because of the mandate of credit unions to get back into the community.
Credit is as it sounds. I mean, credit is your credit score. So there's 2 parts to the score. There's the actual number itself, and that can range from 0 to 850, 850 being the highest. Anything above 640, a bank will look at you and lend to you. Anything over 750, you may get a preferred rate depending on the institution. But 640 is usually the minimum that they're looking for. So if you've got 640 or over, chances are that portion of the criteria has been met. But that's just one of the 5 areas that the bank's going to look at or the lender's going to look at. So other than the score, there's the actual credit facilities themselves. So if you have a high score, that's great. You're almost there. What are the credit facilities? Do you have just one credit card with a balance with a limit of $1,000, or do you have a few different credit cards, a line of credit, a loan, maybe some card payments? Is there history there? That's what they're looking for, and they're looking to see how often you default or you go over that 30-day waiting period.
And this is you showing that you have the ability to manage debt, multiple stream types of debt over time. So when you pay your, and we talked a little bit about this, paying off your credit card at the end of the month will save you interest. There's no question of that, but it will not show as your ability to manage credit over time when you're holding a balance, right? So you're giving up obviously interest when you do that, but we're trying to show in capacity not only how much do we have, but are we able to manage what we have?
With capacity, I'm just going to put these abbreviations here. Sorry about my penmanship. We'll talk about those in a second, but capacity basically means what is your capacity to pay the mortgage or pay the loan? What that means is basically is what is your income? What do the expenses look like? And when we talk about expenses, we're not talking hydro and groceries. We're talking the expenses of the loan itself and the things that you have to pay. So capacity means what is your income? And then if you're looking to borrow money, how high is that mortgage in comparison to your income? How high is the property tax? Or what amount of property tax do you have to pay on the deal? If there is property tax, so we're talking mortgage here. If you're talking, a line of credit or a loan, it's a similar ratio. What is your income versus your expenses on that loan or on that credit card? So capacity refers to your financial ability, your income, versus your expenses of the loan itself. All right. If we talk about GDSR and TDSR, that actually breaks it down even further as a ratio. So we've talked about this last time. I don't want to talk too much about it today.
Maybe we can review it next week.
We can review it next week.
Break that piece down.
We'll break that piece down further.
Yeah.
Collateral just is exactly as it sounds as well. How much money you have in the bank. Do you have any RSPs or tax-free savings accounts? Do you have any other assets that are liquid?
And when they say assets, they don't mean the same thing we mean in the sense that it produces some sort of income. Assets for institutions and banks are anything that you own that has value. That's an actual considered an asset.
And then capital is your actual down payment itself. Are you borrowing 99%, which we're not going to allow? Minimum usually is you need a 5% down payment typically. And then
unless you're doing creative.
Unless you're getting creative, of course. And then where did that down payment come from? So it's not enough just to say, here you go. Here's $10,000 down payment on a $200,000 house. Well, where did the $10,000 come from? Did you go out and borrow it on a credit card? They're going to ask you for proof. They want to see proof that down payment is your savings. They're going to ask you for bank statements, and they want to see the last 90 days. They want to see your pay accumulate in that account and be your money. If it's a gift from a family member, that's fine. You have to provide a gift letter.
Yeah,
and the lender will actually give you a gift letter to go out and get mom and dad to sign, or your cousin, or your Uncle Jim, or whoever it may be. We understand that sometimes people will lend you money, you don't have it, and that's fine. Right. We're not saying you have to have it, but for money laundering issues and all the other rules that FinTrack has in place, we need to know where that down payment came from.
Yeah, that
forms the capital portion of these 5 criteria.
And I think it's important to say, and it's great that we have someone that's on the inside of this, like Tarek, sharing this with us. The big key here is to understand what they're looking for. Be prepared for it. So they're asking us for a 90-day show of capital in there. That's something we can prepare for when we're going into a deal, even if that's coming from another source. There's some ways that we can do that. The gifting is another option. And of course, this would be the same rules typically you would see from mortgage brokers and different lenders. Often we talk about banks, but all of them have some sort of criteria. The big key is to know what that criteria is and be prepared for it.
So I'll get to Kyle's question and then Lazar. So Kyle, your question is, what if you put a chunk of money in an account and then use that to pay the down payment? That's fine. Where did the money come from? The bank's just looking for an explanation. That's all they're looking for.
So Tark, I just want to ask it, and maybe we can get some clarity in that. Now, if I have the money in the bank and it's been sitting there for 90 days and the sum's there, typically that's going to meet that
That's
requirement,
it. That meets
right?
the requirement.
I don't have to tell them where that came
Nope,
from.
you don't have to.
Yeah, so if you've been holding for 90 days, typically that foregoes that questioning.
I mean, they may ask, but they probably want to ask for proof.
Yeah, and it's not that the money's there. That
That's
the
right.
money's there. That's the big thing.
And then Lazar, so theoretically, we can't put a down payment with credit cards, from what I understand. Well, here's the thing, Lazar. So if you went out and took out, let's say, I don't know, if you've got 3 or 4 credit cards with $20,000 limits, and 3 or 4 months prior to you buying a home, you went out and took a cash advances and put them in the bank account, you, depending on the lender, you may get away with it. They may not ask, or, you could say it was a gift. I mean, there's many ways to frame that.
Yeah,
But the point is, as long as
you've met the requirement
Right.
of, and usually it's the 90 days. So as Tark was saying, the 90 days really is the big point of this, and we can extend closes on property or keep that into account. And if that becomes a problem, there's workarounds or other ways we can deal with that situation. As we know, that banks initially, when we're getting a loan to purchase, their rules and regulations are much different than us refinancing as an owner. It's completely different. And I want to remind everybody that banks and mortgage brokers want to give you the money. They want to lend you the money. These are things that have been mandated either by the government. Most of it is those rules that they stick to are government and mandated rules. Some of them are just rules that they came up with as an institution or a lender based on their current circumstance in the marketplace.
Yeah. So just to add to that point, the guy sitting behind the desk at the bank, he wants to give you the money. But before the bank will release the money, there's an underwriter in the back office going through your application with a fine-tooth comb, looking for any discrepancies, right? Because their job is to make sure that the mortgages they approve don't default. That's their job. And their metric, when they're looking at metrics for the underwriters, that's what they base them on. Whereas the metric for the guy in the bank, how many mortgages did he issue? Right? So it's a little bit different in that regards, right? So go ahead, Sam.
Sorry, I was just going to say we're probably going to see a lot more creative financing happening because of the new rule changes with the new stress test for people who get mortgages, and because of that, it's going to create maybe some challenges for the average individual in getting into the marketplace as a borrower. Again, I want to remind everybody, and I hope I share this with everybody. Every time there's a rule that makes it tougher for people to borrow, the general population, that's a good thing for us, right? Because it keeps the rookies out of the game. They're the ones who drive, the novice investor creates more problems than anything by coming into the marketplace and pushing prices up and inflating them to a value that doesn't really allow an individual to profit or cash flow from it. So don't, when you hear those new rules, be excited. We'll create a workaround. Real investors do create workarounds to deal with the new legislation.
So Kyle's got a question from Winnipeg stress test. So what Sam means by that is when, and this goes back to the GDSR, TDSR, but when the bank is doing the calculations to figure out if you financially qualify, if you have the capacity to cover the mortgage, they're looking at the principal and interest payments that you'll be making on the mortgage, plus your property tax, plus any other credit card debts that you have. But when they're looking at when they're putting all those numbers together, it has to pass a stress test. And that stress test just means, if all these numbers compiled are greater than 32% of your income, then the deal doesn't fly. Those expenses have to be less than 32% of your income. Well, those numbers are made up of your principal and interest payments, your property tax, and heat. Those are the only three. And condo fees if there's a condo. But the income portion, the mortgage payment is not based on the rate that you're paying. It's based on a theoretical rate at the 5-year posted bank rate. So even if you're applying for a 5-year mortgage and the rate that you get is 3%, and on that 3% your payment's $1,500 a month, for the purpose of the test, they will not use $1,500 in that calculation. They will use a theoretical number based on 5% interest,
which could be $1,600 or $1,650 or $1,800 or whatever.
$2,500.
Yeah.
And now with a $2,500 payment, do you still qualify? So forget the fact that you're not making a $2,500 monthly payment. You're paying $1,500. They want to know if interest rates go up, can you afford a $2,500 a month mortgage? If the answer is no, and you pass that 32%, they're going to squash the deal.
It's going to be a more serious challenge for people in places like Vancouver and Toronto. The rest of the marketplace, when you're in the 200, 300 range, even $500,000 range, that difference, it will be a difference, but it won't go from 1,500 to 2,500. It will be higher, but when you're talking about markets where there's $1 million properties, that's a serious hit. 2% is $20,000. 2% is $20,000 on $1 million property. Just an interest. That 2% will be divided by 12, and that will be the new addition. So we're looking at 20,000. That's about another $1,500, $1,600, maybe even more, $1,700 in additional payments. So this is actually pretty exciting news, and we're excited to hear about this, because what we're hoping to see, and we'll probably see, is the market start to roll over, and the market will start to soften. Property values will come down. They'll meet more, the realistic prices they need to be for income possibility. So this is all good for us. We like the idea of the stress test. For the most part, we believe that properties are overpriced. You probably know that running the Excel sheet, the evaluator, you see that we're very aggressive on price. It has to make money for us, or it's not valuable. I think the rest of the country is going to learn that lesson, some the hard way, with these new rules. So we're pretty excited to be at this position right now with the new changes in financing.
Just a quick question, Sam.
Yeah.
How many of these guys are new? Should we talk about the GDSR to this right
now? Well, you know what we'll do, because we're running right now. We're running about an hour and a half. So what we're going to do is this. So I want to wrap up the call. Just 1 second. Okay, so we have a question. So for what strategy or type of investment it would be worth to use your own money as a down payment? You can use your own money, and I want to clarify. Look, you can use your own money anytime you want, as long as you have an exit. As long as you have an exit. And when I say that, you need an exit for your money. Your money needs to be able to be brought out. If you had, whether you have, $1 million available in capital, in real money, or money that you borrowed, the big thing about this is the ability to get the money in and get it out. So if I'm using $1 million of my own money, I might use that to purchase a property. But when I refinance it as quickly as possible, I'd refinance it and have the ability to get that $1 million out. Now, you can't get $1 million out if you pay retail $1 million, right? If I pay $1 million for a $1 million house, I'm not going to be able to refinance and get all that money out, right? This is why making money in the buy and making sure we're getting an aggressive price is important to us. So when we refinance, we can get the money out that we put in, okay? So I'm not saying don't use your own money. I'm just saying that you have to have an exit when you do, okay? And again, right, we said 10% is okay. You can use 10%. We just don't want to really go above and beyond that 10%. And there's always a possibility that we would go outside that if the deal made sense, and it made sense to do that in that situation. Okay, so just talking about assignments for the week, okay? So I want to make sure everybody's done the 5 things, okay? The 5 things that I talked about at the beginning. You've done your business card, you've done your logbook for your mileage, you've got your email, telephone number, and space in your house. All those things need to be done. And in addition to that, we're going to continue to run 5 properties minimum. You should be running a week. 5 properties a week. You should be running through the sheet to ensure that you stay on top of it and you continue to seek out new opportunities. Okay.
And I'll add one more thing. So can you bring back that last page for me, Sam?
Yeah. 1 second.
For all those that are self-employed, pay special attention to Genworth. Go to their site. So just Google Genworth and take a look at the self-employed program and what that is. So for those of you that are self-employed who may not necessarily have or may not be necessarily declaring all their income for tax purposes, so those guys that have notice of assessments that are showing low income, there is a program available for you guys that allows you to declare your income just on paper, and they'll take your word for it. So for example, a hairdresser who has a salon in the basement making, realistically $80,000 a year, most of it cash, but she's only showing $30,000 a year on her notice of assessment. Well, bank's going to look at that and say, well, you make $30,000 a year, we can't approve the deal. If she uses Genworth, the self-declared program, she's able to use that full $80,000 of income, even though she's not showing it, even though she's not declaring it, because she may have, she may have bank deposits for a few months that show that she's got similar income, or the fact that people in that industry typically make that sort of money, and they know that, so they'll kind of just, they'll waive the income verification, the traditional income verification methods, and just take your word for it. If they won't just take anybody's word for it, if it's reasonable. So a construction worker making $80,000 a year, yeah, that's reasonable. Are they showing it? Probably not, right? If you've got good credit and you've got a good down payment, self-employed people can use that program through Genworth to get the default insurance that they require through a bank. Okay? So just familiarize yourself with the program. If you've got time.
Yeah, you okay with next week?
That's fine.
So next week, what we'll do is Tark will go through those three and talk a little bit about what they do well. And it'll also break down the different stress tests that the banks use. We'll break them actually down to get a better understanding of what we need to do to be in the position to get a loan when we're dealing with that institution, what they're looking for, okay? Just wrapping up these questions. So Lazar, yeah, reach out to me, Lazar, and we will have we'll have a conversation, me and you, okay? We'll go over that properly. Sorry I couldn't get that on this call, okay?
Genworth is Canadian.
It's Canadian, John. Okay.
It's actually the company is actually GE.
What address? What do you mean?
You can just Google Genworth and you'll get it.
Is that what you're asking, John?
Yeah, perfect.
But I think that one's coming up US. That's why he's asking. Is that one coming up US?
Yeah, mortgage insurance.
That's US. That's not the one. Hold on. We'll type it in. He's got it. That's a US Genworth. Is it just CA? No. Genworth Canada.
Hold on. Let's see this site.
So here
it's just Genworth.ca.
It's Genworth.ca. Just Genworth, not mortgage, whatever, mortgage insurance. Just put Genworth.ca. Genworth.ca. Everybody got that?
Yeah, just Genworth.ca.
Genworth.ca is the Canadian one. Okay? Good, excellent. All right. Okay, we're wrapping up. Thanks, I appreciate that, Lazar. Any other questions before we wrap up? Of course, this is going to be recorded and posted on YouTube. For those of you who don't have the YouTube link, give me a second. Let me get that for you, okay? Give me 1 sec. Let you. One of my students are going to have that pop up before I get to it. Yeah, it's just right there. I'm just grabbing the channel. One second, folks. My channel. There we go. Let's go here. Yeah, they're all. There's the videos. Your videos up there. You got a great video. Okay, so here we go. Here's a link to one of the videos right there, okay? I just picked one. Oops, it's on. Hold on, let me shut that video off. Alright, hold on. There. Okay, so what you can do is anybody who wants, you can click on that. When you click on that, especially new people, okay, subscribe. Okay, subscribe so when the video gets popped up, you'll be alerted, okay? It's a closed circuit. That's how you'll be able to get it now, okay? Excellent. Excellent. All right. All right. We good? Everybody good? If you're good, say yes or type in Y. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. So we will see everybody next Tuesday. Remember to get into your classes, get on the on-demand, start watching that so you can learn from your resources. Remember, a couple hours a day, 1 hour learning, 1 hour earning. Go out there and keep hunting for those properties, and we'll put some deals together. Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and we will see you all next Tuesday. Thank you very much, Tark. Can everybody say thanks, Tark? Or at least type it in. Thanks, Tark. I really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right. You have a great night and good hunting, and we will talk to you next week.